Welcome to the NDE Insight channel. In today's episode, our narrator will recount an intriguing near-death experience where he glimpsed a future global disaster and experienced a miraculous healing from God. Given the common queries from both believers and non-believers about why God permits such calamities, we'll delve into a part of the discussion on this matter in the concluding segment of the video. Before we embark on the story, let's join together in a prayer, asking God to provide comfort to those grappling with pain, sorrow, grief, and various setbacks in life. May His light shine upon you, and may your hope align with God's will. Amen.
Hi, I'd like to share my near-death experience anonymously. You can call me John or anything you prefer. This happened a long time ago. In 1982, I served as a correctional officer in the Georgia Department of Corrections. I worked on a 7-day rotation, and during this particular week, I was on the night shift, from midnight to 8 a.m. On a cold December morning, after punching out, I headed home. I was looking forward to the morning as I had plans to hunt on a 98-acre farm adjacent to our house, bordered by the Chattahoochee River. Upon reaching home, I packed my hunting gear and set out as early as possible. My wife was already at work, just like most regular working folks. Usually, I would call her when I went hunting, but on this particular morning, I didn't. The walk to my tree stand was about 2 miles, and I arrived there around 10:15 in the morning. My tree stand was about 20 feet high, facing a dense pine forest in front and overlooking the river below at the back, with huge boulders beneath. I tied my rifle with a rope, ready to pull it up after climbing to the top, and began ascending. When I reached the top of the tree stand and was about to pull up my rifle, suddenly, I heard a snapping sound. Later, when I revisited the site with a friend, I measured the distance from the top of the tree stand to where I landed, 80 feet. As I started plummeting towards the river, I could see the water rapidly approaching. I knew this was the end for me, though in those few seconds before impact, it felt like slow motion. Countless thoughts raced through my mind: my wife, my daughter, my family, and no one knew where I was. Would they find me? Then, darkness. I don't know how long the darkness lasted. Then something wonderful happened. I felt like I was leaving my body. I floated a few feet above the ground. With complex sensations, I looked at my body. My mouth, nose, and ears were bleeding, and blood formed a trail on the large stones below me. As I reflected on the state of my body, I felt a pull, and I began ascending rapidly. I traversed the atmosphere at high speed, reaching the summit. When I looked back, I could see the earth, so beautiful and bright. Continuing to gaze forward, I saw planets. I thought, this can't be real. Where is Jesus? During the acceleration, I saw other galaxies and entered what seemed to be some kind of gateway. It was long and dark, but around me, I saw rays of light composed of various colors. I noticed a faint glow in the distance getting brighter. As I entered the glow, I felt it permeating my entire being. I was no longer afraid. Suddenly, I found myself standing in front of a massive set of steps leading to a place that looked like a bridge or some kind of corridor. In the distance, I saw a magnificent and astonishing sight: a city made of glass or crystal, emitting lights of various colors. I calmly walked towards the city, falling into a bewildering sense of disbelief. Countless questions swirled in my mind. I had to know where I was and what had happened. Arriving in front of the city, I saw a pair of double doors about 30 feet high and wide, sparkling as if polished. As I stood there contemplating, the doors suddenly opened. I took a step back and peered inside. I could see people moving around, much like people in a mall on Earth. However, these people were dressed very differently. They all wore long robes with hoods. I entered the doors, astonished by what I saw. Inside was enormous, square, with balconies all around leading to different levels. I climbed the stairs, overlooking the balconies below, feeling as if there was no end. As I looked up, I saw many people passing by me, but it seemed like no one noticed me. Then, as a person approached me, he suddenly stopped. He slowly raised his head, and I could see his face. In all respects, he looked human, But with a difference, his eyes had no pupils but seemed to shift in shades of blue. His hair was snow white. I wanted to speak, but before I could, he turned and pointed down a long hallway. Although we didn't communicate, I knew I should walk along this hallway. Then, as if nothing had happened, he continued forward. I knew I had to move forward too, something was calling me. I turned around to see Earth in chaos, wars and death, horrifying scenes. Cities collapsing and new ones emerging. I witnessed the eruption of a volcano in the United States, covering many cities. I watched as the known governments crumbled, and people turned on each other for food and water, a dreadful sight. I saw a massive explosion in Earth's atmosphere, destroying much land. I witnessed a new type of people, young and peaceful. The remaining cities were few, but these people seemed content. The voice spoke again, "It's time for you to leave." But I wanted to see more. Then the doors opened, and I felt almost carried along the hallway. I passed through the city's gates, feeling like I was going through the same hole I had arrived through. I accelerated faster and faster, unable to stop. I entered Earth's atmosphere, seeing rivers below. I saw my body lying there, motionless. Then it was like a massive jolt. I felt my body jerk. I opened my eyes, seeing trees and the skyline above. Oh, dear, the pain. I struggled for each breath, coughing up blood from my throat. I managed to turn onto my stomach. The pain was all I could endure. I looked at the sky, realizing the sun was lower than I remembered. I checked my watch. It was 5:30. My only thought was how to seek help. I noticed my rifle not far away, still tied to my waist with a rope. I began pulling it towards me. I managed to grab the barrel and pull it to my side. Every 10 minutes or so, I fired a shot, hoping someone would come. As time passed, I knew I couldn't hold on much longer, so I started crawling, using the rifle's stock to pull myself. I managed to climb a small path leading to the riverbank. I crawled and crawled, the pain unbearable, and I passed out many times. Through thick bushes and thorns, I crawled. I wanted to give up. I was too tired, the pain unbearable. However, I knew I had to crawl to a place where I could be found. I clung to hope. I stood among the trees, gazing at the road leading to my home. I could hear distant sounds. Yes, thank God, I thought to myself. Eventually, I found myself on the road, uttering faint cries for help. However, I was too exhausted and just lay there. My father-in-law was returning from work and discovered me lying on the road. "It's okay," I heard him say. "Help is on the way." That was the last moment I remembered until I saw the lights in the emergency room. A doctor stood at the foot of my bed. "Can you feel this?" he said. "Feel what?" I asked. He kept poking my feet and legs. I was paralyzed. "Son, there's nothing we can do here," he said. "We need to send you to a hospital that can address your injuries." Whether it was the pain or the effect of medication, I faded like a lamp. The next afternoon, I woke up to find 2 doctors standing at the foot of my bed. They introduced themselves as my attending physicians and began explaining that I needed immediate surgery. A broken bone in my back was compressing the spinal nerves, causing paralysis. Then I heard the warnings I had heard before: don't let them operate, or you'll never walk again. I fully understood, but I knew they wouldn't agree. I told them I needed to see my wife and daughter first. Shortly after the doctor's visit, my wife and daughter arrived. I informed them of what the doctors had said. She advised me to recognize that they were taking these measures for my well-being. I didn't know how to convey what I had experienced to her. I tried to tell her I thought I shouldn't undergo surgery. Despite her disagreement, she respected my wishes. When the doctors returned, I told them my decision, and they were very displeased. I endured repeated reprimands. Well, one of the doctors said, "If you don't want to walk again, that's up to you." Then they left. That night, I lay in bed crying. Was I going crazy? What was I doing? A light began to fill my room. I heard a voice say, "You will be okay." Then it disappeared. I comforted myself and gradually drifted into slumber. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Then one morning, I felt tingling in the soles of my feet. I was filled with joy. I told the nurse I wanted to get up and walk. She stared at me and said, "We'll see, we'll see." I had no doubt that I had healed. The nurse informed my doctor, and the next morning, he came over. "So you think you can walk?" he said. "Yes," I replied. "Well, we'll see." A few hours later, I was taken to the therapy room. They used a bed to bring me down, pulled me into an upright position. The nurse helped me stand in front of a set of parallel bars. I gripped the bars, firmly placed my feet on the floor. 1 step, 2 steps. "My goodness, he's walking," the nurse said to the one who had brought me down. The next few days were challenging. I underwent many therapy sessions and numerous X-ray examinations as per the doctor's instructions. My wife and family were amazed, but I knew what I had heard, the rest had to be true as well. When the doctor found no bones compressing my spinal nerves, he was even more astonished. I quoted his words, "This is not normal. It seems there's a higher force that did what we were supposed to correct through surgery. I have never seen anything like this before." From that day on, my life changed, and I was able to help others in ways I had never imagined. I want to share this with everyone because it is the reason that guided me on the path of seeking truth, peace, and light.
When a hurricane, tornado, flood, wildfire, earthquake, tsunami, or another natural disaster suddenly strikes, claiming thousands of lives and ravaging homes and infrastructures, it often feels like there's little that can be done to prevent such events and too little to aid the survivors and their communities. Our hearts ache for those who have lost loved ones in these natural disasters, and our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone affected by the increasing frequency of new disasters. In the aftermath of such catastrophes, many question how a loving God can seemingly stand by and witness the physical, spiritual, and emotional destruction of thousands of lives. Some accept the reality of the losses and hold on to the belief that everything happens for a reason. Yet, others reject the existence of a benevolent God, reasoning that such suffering wouldn't be allowed in a world created by a loving deity. According to the Bible, when God placed Adam and Eve in the idyllic Garden of Eden, a controlled environment of his making, there were no natural disasters. It was a perfect dwelling place, contingent upon following God's instructions for righteous living. However, God also granted them free will, cautioning that rejecting his guidance would lead to suffering and death. Due to the influence of Satan the devil, our first parents chose to defy God's instructions and believe Satan's deceit. Consequently, Adam and Eve were expelled from the perfect world, and natural disasters and other tragedies became a consequence of a world that turned away from God. Nevertheless, God desires humanity to turn back to him and receive his blessings. In the not-too-distant future, humanity will bring itself to the brink of annihilating all life on earth. At that crucial moment, Christ will return to save humanity from its self-inflicted demise. Satan will be removed, and the kingdom of God will be established on earth for 1,000 years, a time of peace and prosperity. During that period, God promises, "I will make them and the places all around my hill a blessing, and I will cause showers to come down in their season, there shall be showers of blessing." While we grieve today due to natural disasters, we can anticipate a future where God will shower down blessings. We can take refuge in the promises of a better future when God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. What are your thoughts on why disasters are allowed by God? Feel free to share your comments below.